President Trump. Massive information and 100% evidence will be made available. 100%fedup.com * by Noah. I keep asking if President Trump looks worried to you. More on that in a minute. Time equals 400 ms greater than. I ask because the answer to that question is the barometer that will tell you everything you need to know about everything else that's happening right now. I keep saying President Trump doesn't look the least bit worried to me. No, he looks like the man who already holds all the cards. And he basically just told you as much on Truth Social. Does anyone notice that the election rigging Biden administration never goes after the riggers, but only after those that want to catch and expose the rigging dogs? Massive information and 100% evidence will be made available during the corrupt trials started by our political opponent. We will never let 2020 happen again. Look at the result. Our country is being destroyed. MAGA. How much clearer could he be? We have all the evidence and we'll reveal it all in court. Time equals 400 ms greater than. The ultimate Perry Mason moment. The ultimate. Just one more thing, ma'am. Columbo ending. It's all coming and it's going to be done legally. And it's looking like Lin Wood will be there too, along with Sidney Powell and Rudy and a few other co-defendants as well, all testifying honestly and truthfully. A question I have asked frequently in the past year is, does President Trump look worried to you? I like to use him as a barometer for how the war is going. So I ask a simple question. Does President Trump himself look worried or bothered? And every time I look, I see a man who is calm and confident, who is acting like he has already won and no one else has figured it out yet. First of all, you have President Trump sitting next to Jesus, or vice versa. Little Brian Krasen mocked it on Twitter, which is no big surprise, saying, what do these two have in common? To which I responded, both were unfairly prosecuted by a rogue and out-of-control government. A lot. Time equals 400 ms greater than. Also, I have said this many times, but I believe the only reason Trump still stands after 8 years of everything they're thrown at him is because he is being upheld by the mighty right hand of God. But I believe he was placed here and is being sustained for such a time as this. Time equals 400 ms greater than. And then you have the picture below of a President Trump in great spirits surrounded by police supporting him. Here is more from the last time I asked this question. I just have to ask one question, and it's a serious one. Time equals 400 ms greater than, because I think this one question answers all of the others. All of the others, like, are the white hats in control or the black hats? You know, kind of like the age-old question from Dirty Harry. Do you feel lucky, punk? Time equals 400 ms greater than. The man with the entire deep state coming after him. The weight of the world seemingly on his shoulders. Ostensibly mounting a comeback to the White House. Single-handedly trying to save America from an inside coup. You know what it tells me? It tells me that this is a man who knows he has already won. That's what I see when I see videos like this or when I listen to him speak. There is a serious as a heart attack tone in his voice. There is laser focus. There is a mean streak that is soon to be unleashed that will be unlike anything we've ever seen in Washington as Trump unveils the most epic counter-punch in history. Time equals 400 ms greater than. I see a man who is likely already holding all the cards and is just waiting for the exact right time to play them. I know it's taken longer than we all wanted, but now we quite literally have evidence out there of Joe Biden himself taking a $5 million and a $10 million bribe from other countries. Time equals 400 ms greater than. It couldn't be Trump in office telling America about it. It had to come out by other sources. We've also seen how bad the deep state can destroy America in just 3 years, but soon I think President Trump plays his Trump card. There's a lot from 2020 that people forget, but I haven't. Remember when it was rumored that the White Hats raided that server farm in Frankfurt, Germany, and the rumor was that Trump won with 410 electoral votes? Time equals 400 ms greater than. Have you noticed how President Trump keeps telling us he won by a lot more in 2020 than he did in 2016? Folks, I think you're about to witness one of the greatest endings to a story you've ever seen. And I base that on the body language I read when I watch President Trump. But I've been doing this a long time and my gut isn't wrong too often. Related. President Trump gave an exclusive interview to Bret Baier today and it was wild. I have so many clips to show you, but I have to start with the bombshell. So sad to see Bret Baier pushing the company line. Recounting a cheated, stolen election will still get you a cheated, stolen result. You don't need to be a brain surgeon to figure that out, Bret. Wise up, bud. Then they covered the phony presidential records case. Okay folks. I know this one is going to cause some controversy. Half of you love it anytime I post something from Derek Johnson. The other half of you gripe and complain. And so I know this is going to stir up a debate. But here's the deal. This post is from Derek Johnson, but it's not really his opinion. It's a photo. Two photos actually, but one is a zoom in of the other. Look, I'm not an expert on the military or on the Secret Service, but that sure looks to me like that is a heavy-duty, military-grade guard. Time equals 400 ms, greater than are the white hats in the military in control and keeping him heavily shielded. I know the next question that always pops up when we discuss that, which is, if Trump is still in charge, why is he letting everything get so bad? I don't pretend to have all the answers, but some people are so brainwashed by the MSM and so detached from reality that you can't tell them what's happening. Even if Trump used the emergency broadcasting system and took over all TV channels and spent hours laying out all the evidence, a portion of America would not be able to take their blinders down to see it. So sometimes the only option you have is to let the enemy implode and self-destruct. Sometimes you have to let it get so bad for long enough that the evidence become overwhelming, to the point where even CNN will be forced to cover it. Is that what's happening now? Let me give you a couple more things before I go to stimulate some more discussion. It's long, but if you want the hard evidence, I challenge you to watch this 3-hour video and see what you think by the end. And now if you want to go even deeper, I brought you this last month. It's so good. I know many of you love hearing from Derek Johnson. He's retired military who has done his homework and knows how the military justice system works. And he applies that knowledge to our current situation to educate and inform on what is likely to come next, and what rights we all have that we don't even know about. Time equals 400 ms, greater than. He's a great patriot and I love bringing you his messages from time to time. I do like Derek Johnson, and of course I am hoping and praying for military tribunals. But I'm not one of these people who believes all these bad people have already been secretly executed. Sorry, but I just don't see the evidence for that, even if I want desperately for them to be gone. But DJ brings up some really interesting things in this video, and so I'm sharing it with you. Because I'm a reporter and it's not for me to decide or prejudge what he's saying. I'm going to get it out there to you and let you decide. On June 15, 2015, Donald J. Trump announced his candidacy for President of the United States. That same week, the Department of Defense published its Law of War Manual, 240 years after the establishment of the military. Download a copy at https://www.defense.gov/news/releases/articles/6055622/.-new-law-of-war-manual. Much of what I've read in it is revealing, including that military authority granted by the United States Supreme Court and Congress in 2015-16, includes the fact that this law of war supersedes laws passed by Congress. For those fake checkers, as we now call them, 240 years is not an error. The military was established in 1775, preceding even the Declaration of Independence in 1776, and long before the first U.S. government, Articles of Confederation, ever came into being. The next decade, 1781. Fact: the United States government has operated under the military's continuity of government provisions since January 20, 2017, as can be seen on the government's Office of Security website. https://www.commerce.gov/oz. What else happened on January 20, 2017? You ask? Donald J. Trump was sworn in as the 45th president of the country, the day the law of war went into effect. So let's set the stage for what happened on December 16, 2015. A testy exchange occurred at the Republican presidential debate between former Florida Governor Jeb Bush, brother to President George Bush, and Donald Trump when Jeb attacked the only outsider candidate. Who's going to vote for you? Who's going to back you? Trump's immediate response was very telling. As for, who's going to vote for you? Trump quipped, the American people. That's who. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than. But in answer to Bush's second question, who's going to back you? I assumed Bush was speaking of rich donors. Trump answered, I'm backed by 200 generals. How about you, Jeb? That's when it was clear to me the rumors were true. The U.S. military had asked citizen Trump to save America. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than. No candidate for president is going to claim to the brother of a former president, who would know the answer, that hundreds of U.S. generals were backing him unless it was the truth, and apparently, it was. They not only backed him then, they still do to this day. Trump underplayed this fact when he said Marine Corps General Joseph F. Dunford Jr. played a role in his decision to run, but that clearly understates the matter, as he was awarded the Commandant's Leadership Award on April 22, 2015, just 2 months prior to that announcement. https://www.military.com, Daily News. The 1st of October 2019. Trump says Dunford played role his decision run president. HTML coincidence? I don't believe in those anymore. This was the plan. Also, giving this top military award to a civilian outsider, in my opinion, was the signal the Marine Corps Commandant sent to the other generals that he and the top brass intended to put this man Trump in play to save America from the global Marxists, both foreign and domestic, perhaps mostly, Domestic War Powers Act, IN2, and Executive Order 13912 made Trump wartime president, meaning that role continues until 2024. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than. Executive Order 13912 declared the national emergency, COVID, giving these extraordinary powers to the president, with which I don't agree. By the way, https://public-inspection.federalregister.gov/2020-06985.pdf. It either says what it says or it doesn't, so read it. I'm just the scribe. But it wasn't just this one national emergency, declared by Proclamation 9994 under Section 12302 of Title 10, U.S.C. Sections 2127, 2308, 2314, and Section 3735 of Title 14 that was invoked. There were seven national emergencies declared by President Trump in writing, and two he announced publicly, any one of which federalized 1 million soldiers, and put them at his disposal when and as needed, until the national emergencies were ended. It also made him commander-in-chief until that time. Pursuant to these laws and emergency powers granted under them, Donald J. Trump remains in power, to the chagrin of the Marxists he still intends to rip out by the roots upon his official return, which their recent actions and fake indictments prove they must know. The Richardson Post reported how Trump established his ability to declare a national emergency over election meddling simply by continuing the Obama-Biden administration Executive Order 13694. Designed to falsely claim Russia interfered in U.S. elections, 2016, and then seize assets of their enemies. Please read our article on this for background and context from December 5, 2020. Did President Trump just go nuclear? https://richardsonpost.com. Howell Woltz, 19243. Did President Trump just go nuclear? Trump added his own Executive Order 13848, September 12, 2018, authorizing the seizure of the assets of those involved, including U.S. citizens guilty of domestic election interference, knowing already that Democrats colluded with China, not Russia, to rig the 2016 election. But were overwhelmed by Trump. Hillary Clinton lost anyway in 2016 when Trump voters overwhelmed the rigging. Without mail-in, they could not rig or win future elections. Almost every Democrat politician and globalist, Marxist financial backer of these thugs in America can be subject to asset seizure by the military under the ongoing continuance of government resolution, which is still in effect. This young hero, Derek Johnson, laid it out. Using only law, I took an incredible amount of heat after Trump's supposed election loss in 2020. By the way, when we published, "Trump will win, here's why," and laid out my reasoning. https://richardsonpost.com/howellwoltz/19050/trump-will-win-here's-why/we couldn't tell you how we knew it then, and still can't. But everything Derek Johnson lays out as fact, backed up with documentation proving what I wrote back then was a correct assessment. Military continuance of government was invoked, and Trump could still call the shots until that ended. So why did Trump take 2 years of attacks and arrows if he was still in power under these laws? Great question, and I'm so glad you asked it. The answer is, you had to see it for yourselves before you would believe all this was even remotely possible. If I told you then that the US government had developed deadly viruses and paid their collaborators in communist China millions of US taxpayer dollars to make these diseases more deadly to humans, and then release them on the world, would you have believed me? Time equals 400 ms, greater than, hell no, is the answer, and you know it. But I bet you believe me now, because you saw it and lived through it, or didn't. If someone close to you died of it, you probably hate the rogues in my own government and their CCP collaborators as much as I do. Time equals 400 ms, greater than if I told you the real purpose of this scamdemic was to lock down our nations so our compromised leaders could justify mail-in ballots to steal elections through voter fraud. Would you have believed me then? Again, hell no, is the answer, even though we proved to you the CCP owned the Dominion voting machines before the 2020 election, via its 75% ownership of UBS Bank in Switzerland, which took Dominion's assets as collateral just 1 month before the voter fraud, on October 8, 2020. But I bet you believe me now after seeing that only 102 million registered U.S. voters somehow cast 158 million ballots in the U.S. presidential election? Time equals 400 ms, greater than, only 153 million were registered per U.S. Census, with a record turnout of 66.7% per Statista, meaning there were only 102 million legal votes in 2020, 56 million fake votes, yet everyone but us said, no evidence of fraud. Really, many, I'm sure, thought our information about the deep state, its development of killer viruses, the Biden's collaboration with the CCP, and the incredible corruption in America's government were crazy, bullshit, delusional, to name just a few comments from back then, but I was right and knew it. How did I know these things? Because I was a political prisoner in the American Gulag, the largest in world history, for several years. The deep state constantly moves its enemies, and I was moved 29 times between secret sites and allegedly closed prisons, including the most dangerous holding sites in America, for 7 long years. Time equals 400 ms, greater than I met almost every other American, and foreign, whistleblower, truth-teller, journalist and political prisoner during those 84 months of what is known as diesel therapy. Though never convicted by any court of jurisdiction of any crime, to this day. The book and film on that story are still circulating all these years later, perhaps more relevant now than ever, when some of the same thugs are going after my president. For those of you who are visual, like me, here's the movie on what happened. President Trump was in battle mode in Michigan yesterday. But when he was in power from 2016 to 2020, he seemed to fight at about 80% of what we know he was capable of. And now we're waiting for Donald Trump, the wrecking ball, to steamroll through all of this BS, taking no prisoners. Any attempt to work with the demons in DC is finally abandoned. Time equals 400 ms, greater than in the midst of all that focus and grit. Still, I find it fascinating that he does not look worried, as if he knows he has already won, and now it's just time to do the dirty cleanup. Does this look like a man who has any ounce of concern? Time equals 400 ms, greater than President Trump took the stage in Michigan on Saturday to address a crowd of Oakland County Republicans. One of the highlights of Trump's speech is when he told the crowd of Republicans, "We don't really real elections, we have fake elections." Time equals 400 ms, greater than the 45th president continued. They don't want to same-day voting, better one paper ballots. They never want any of that stuff because they want to cheat on elections. Trump also called out Democrats for refusing to require voters to have IDs while voting. President Trump took his latest swipe at the United States election system during a speech to Michigan Republicans on Sunday. During a speech to Oakland County Republicans in Michigan on Sunday, Trump said that he saved the steel industry in Michigan by placing tariffs on foreign aluminum and steel when he was president. He said that there would be no country without steel, borders or elections, which he said were fake in the U.S., and if you don't have steel, you don't have a country, like borders, like elections, got to have real elections, he said during the keynote address. We don't really real elections, we have fake elections. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than Trump, who has repeatedly falsely claimed the 2020 election was stolen from him, also said that he wants same-day voting on election day, paper ballots and instating requirements for voter ID. He said Democrats do not want to implement those measures because they want to cheat. Besides calling out election fraud, Trump also told the crowd he plans to demolish the deep state. A new interview with President Trump was just published and I have a short clip you're going to love. He talks about why he has to fight so hard, and how he's winning the fight against the deep state. That's the story the MSM won't tell you. He's not even officially in office, and yet he's still winning. This article was previously posted on We Love Trump a few months ago, but it is very timely to post again today. Please enjoy. So if you only read the MSM, you'd think the Q movement was a truly horrible group of people. They must stand for rape, murder, robbery, battery, child molestation, right? Time equals 400 Ms. greater than actually, kind of the opposite. The Q movement is a group of Americans that love America, freedom, liberty, and one of their basic missions just happens to be exposing and stopping child sex trafficking. Bet you didn't know that if you only listen to the MSM. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than, but it's true. It's my duty to get the word out. And I hope you will help me. I love what happened recently when a reporter asked the president what he thought about the QAnon movement. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than Trump responded by admitting that he didn't know much about the movement but recognized that they are a group that is frustrated with how cities like Portland and Chicago are being run and that they love the country. President Trump also said that he hears that many of them are supporters of his. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than naturally. That last comment is all the far-left news organizations are now pouncing on. They're missing the key part of the press conference though. In a follow-up question, the reporter asked the president. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than. At the crux of the theory is this belief that you are secretly saving the world from this satanic cult of pedophiles and cannibals. Does that sound like something that you are behind? President Trump's response was simple. Is that supposed to be a bad thing?